Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. I'm your host, Deshaun Fauntleroy. I know your time is precious, so we're going to get right into today's show. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing episode 7 of season 3 of Last Chance U. And within this episode, we're going to be discussing, they took a trip to Kansas City Stadium, to the Chiefs Stadium. We're going to be discussing Miss Pinkard again, of course, the game of life in the classroom and after sports. We're also going to take a deep dive into Coach Frank Diaz and his relationship with Coach J.B. Brown. And I'm going to break that down. One of my favorite authors is Robert Greene. So I'm going to break this situation down today from Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, Law 4, always say less than necessary. Later, Leland will be discussing the relationship with Bobby Bruce and the underlying story with him and Miss Pinkard and aspirations of going to the NFL. Today's episode is brought to you by Bay Area company Millennium Edge Apparel, an athletic apparel company that manufactures clothing for basketball, golf, soccer, regular workouts, and even restaurant staff members. To learn more, visit millenniumedgeapparel.com. And now, back to the show. On every football team and in every season, whether you go 0-9, 0-10, or you have an undefeated season, there's going to be some hardship. You start a new company, go through a Kickstarter phase, there's going to be some hardship. And within that hardship, there's going to be some character that comes out of the team. On every team and every organization, the jokers always come out. The pranksters always come out. You have to have people like that. You have to have people that can make you laugh. You have to have people that can make you smile when you feel like frowning throughout hardship. And you could see this when they took a field trip to the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium, because they're mimicking J.B. Brown. You have, I think it might have been Jamal Scott, if I'm right. And one of them was like, they did, Emmett Gooden, he was acting like Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here to play football, and I don't want to get fined, so I'm up here. But, Jamal Scott was like, you motherfuckers need me. I got 10 Cadillacs. I got a beach house. And I found that to be funny because every team I've played on, we've always did a mimic or a mockery of the coach at some point. It's just what we do. You know what I mean? And I've been in situations, early on with my podcast, having guys like Coach Reveno on, having guys like Terrence Wood on, and guys like Alex Molden. I would play my episode throughout our training session. And over a period of time, I've had my athletes mock me. They would do the intro. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, heroes and villains. And literally we just start laughing for like 5 minutes. And I thought the shit was funny myself. I had to laugh because they had me down to a T. I know, Leland, you've been through some experiences like that. What were some of your early thoughts, on their field trip? Because it starts off lighthearted. It's not dramatic like it had been throughout the series.
No, that kind of it brought back good times, man. It brought back some really good memories, and it had me start thinking about different teams I played for and the different characters I played with. Him imitating the coach kind of reminded me of when we was on the Thunderbolts, and we had an owner, Mike Erickson, who was a very, very supportive owner. Loved Mike Erickson. Like to say, I really didn't appreciate him while I was playing, but I appreciate him more and more I think about him. But we used to mimic him. And if you remember, Mike was a kicker for PSU.
Portland State, yeah.
Portland State. But Mike was probably he's an all-star businessman. Businessman, just, man, you know what I'm saying? Couldn't find any better businessman, all right? Football player, I don't know.
Right.
And he's the owner of the team, bro. And we would, like, in the game, we would walk down the sideline and go, Mike, man, don't miss another damn field goal, man. I'm serious, man. Will you not miss and this is the owner. So it made me sit back and think we had a very original relationship with him, and he was a really patient guy, and really showed his love for the sport by taking the shit he used to take from us.
Right. I remember because Mike, I think at Portland State, this was years before I got there. Mike was a kicker at Portland State, but I think he was also the student class president, student body president, or something like that. But he was known. I think he had rigged the ballot or some shit like that, and people would always joke with his ass about that. At the same time, it would be lighthearted, of course.
No,
You
I
know what I mean?
remember that. I remember that. I remember that because we went to a party at his beach house, and the guys were sliding in little comments about it. I'm like, what are y'all talking about, man? What are you talking about ballot? And then one of the guys told me, hey, man, you didn't know Mike rigged the ballot for the student president. I loved it. Ever since then, again, I just kind of, he was a cool character, man, and I really appreciated him. Remember, what was his name? Denmark? Delray, my fault. Delray. Remember Delray, right? He was our equipment guy.
Right.
And,
Right.
and I seen him not too long ago, and he told me, he said, hey, man. He said, hey. I said, what's up, Delray? We gave each other a hug. And Delray was like, yeah, me and Mike just went to the Seahawks game, and he invited me to the game. Let me show you pictures. And he showed me pictures, and best seats in the house. Bro, Mike has seats where they took recliners, electric recliners. And I did not know this, but they have seats where they're down on the field on the sideline in recliners, okay? Reclining leather, just the most beautiful reclining leather chairs you could see. They're on the field watching the game. And I was looking at the picture. I said, man, that's cool, bro. I said, I know Mike hate my ass because I used to give him a hard time. He said, you know what? No, we were talking about you, man. He loves you, dude. And again, it just brought back, the crazy relationships we used to have with our coaches and owners.
One thing I liked about Mike is having that affiliation with Portland State for a semi-pro team. He was notorious for always getting ex semi-pro athletes. I mean, ex Portland State athletes on the team. And one guy that I played with, Marcus Royster. When I met Royce, he was transferring in from Pitt, and this dude was like 6'1", 270-pound D lineman, and just a real asshole on the field, but he was a prankster at the same time, and just a joker, just a real character. So I remember we had a trip to Nebraska Kearney, and this one, Portland State, was Division II. So we were flying out to Nebraska on a Friday morning, and we would go out on Thursday nights. And Marcus, he stayed out later on Thursday night. I don't even think his ass went to sleep. And it was a business trip, so they all, the role was everybody was wearing shirt and tie. So Marcus shows up with some navy blue Dockers on, a short sleeve
Mm-hmm.
white button down, and he had a tie on that looked like it was really suited for like a 12-year-old kid. And this dude is a big, huge defensive lineman, and I think we laughed from the time we got on the bus to the airport until we got off. But those are characters that I met. I remember there was another character that we played with, and when I was at Portland State with Andre Jameson, this dude, he never touched the field. He's about 5'9" and literally wore size 14. So they would call this guy Daffy Duck. But he was known for his magic tricks. And I don't want to date us, but this dude would carry around his fucking Super Nintendo in a briefcase. And whenever he had spare time,
Yeah, I
we just
know.
go to dorm to dorm. So I mean, and with him being a joker, he did later become a professional comedian. He's been on BET several times, but that was, he was good for telling jokes. He could make you laugh about yourself without getting offended.
I played with him. I had a chance to play with him. So he's the best dude
Yeah.
I ever played with. Best teammate.
you know, uh, but I want to switch lanes, man, because I'm looking at the situation with Frank Diaz, and then there's some important parts in the episode where you hear Frank, he's expressing, and this is on camera, and I think he's talking to Malik Henry's dad, Marcel, and he's like, "Man, I don't think I'll be here after December. This place sucks." So within that conversation, he's talking to Malik's dad, and he was like, "Man, JB just doesn't get it. Malik is like night and day from the time he got here, and he might have made some minimal changes, but it was still at a point where he never exuded leadership. He never asserted himself from a leadership perspective." And I saw Frank kind of co signing on bad behavior and crying, really crying to Malik's dad about how far Malik has come, and in my opinion, he was making JB look like a bad guy. And at the end of the day, and I can see why JB would say, these damn millennials, and he would talk about Diaz, and he was like, Diaz is a millennial too. And I'll be the first, and you can go look this up in a dictionary, but the way Frank was behaving during that scene, he was a fool. Now I'm going to take this a step further and break this down from the aspect. One of my favorite authors is Robert Greene, and his book 48 Laws of Power. I read all of his material. I share his material, with my athletes. But to just keep this simple, I would say in this situation that Frank, he violated law number 4 in the 48 Laws of Power. Always say less than necessary, because what I was just talking about, he was transgressing the law. One, you're siding with the parent. You're venturing into a matter, giving a solid opinion, and I would say to a degree that which you know nothing about. And I'm saying this because Frank played his high school ball at the at Willamette High School in Oregon, which is in Salem, small town. Later, he went on to Oregon. He tried out as a receiver. He got cut. He never made the team, never played it down. Scott Frost, Chip Kelly, they invite him back a year or two later to be a grad assistant, work with the quarterbacks, be a video coordinator. That's Frank's college football. So you did get a chance to work up under some people that have some big names in the industry. But again, you're still in the apprenticeship phase. Later, you wouldn't coach some high school football. So I'm saying when you're in a situation like he was and you're still coming up the ladder, you really got to know how to keep your mouth shut. And you're expressing that on one end about the head coach. You're siding with the parent, which is a no no in most situations. And even the way your interaction is with Malik, you talk too much. You have to beg him to do stuff. It gets you nowhere. So the interpretation of that is if you learn how to just keep your mouth shut, lead by example, and then you can make moves just like you did, in an earlier episode where you told him that Brandon Beal was starting. You could have just left it at that, and I think he pretty much did. But when you get in these situations, it brings you to a point that nobody's going to respect you. Your players don't respect you, and your other coaches don't respect you. And I would say that the comments that I heard that are on Netflix, any coach worth his salt is going to take a second look at how you were talking to this parent about Coach Brown and the situation. You're saying this place sucks. Every apprenticeship sucks. People keep that to themselves. When you have a grand objective, you gotta know how to control yourself emotionally. Now, when you look at an observance of this law, when you look at Coach, Lawan Watson, you look at there's a guy that they show from time to time, Jordan Parsons. He's like the other receivers coach, and then they also have you can look at the O-line coach, the D coordinator, the DB coach. You never hear those guys talking about JB Brown. They're just doing their work. They knew the situation coming in. He had 8 coaches that were paid and 8 coaches that were unpaid. So when you sign up for something like that, you got to take a real personal look at yourself from inside and out to know what you're getting into. Everybody goes through an apprenticeship phase. Just because you spent 3 or 4 years at Oregon, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's over. And it doesn't mean that you're a master, because we really don't know what you did under Chip Kelly, under Scott Frost. It's a great start, but it doesn't end there. And guys like Nick Saban, You could bring up some of the best coaches in all the sports. They all worked and toiled excessively for a long time without complaining about it. And if they did, they didn't voice their opinions, because once you get to doing that, it puts you in a place. It's almost like gossiping. And I talk to my players about that, because some of the things that Frank was saying. One, this comes out, coach is gonna see it. It's a reason why you're not there now. And he was figuring this out in the episode. But as a gossiper, you're venturing into something that, let's put it like this. You're talking to a parent. Eventually that parent is going to share that conversation with the coach. It's going to come out in some way, shape, or form. This goes to players too, because players are notorious for, man, what do you think about what coach did? Or what do you think about what the coach said? And I can promise you, there's always that one player or that one person around that's going to go repeat what you said to the coach or an assistant coach, and it'll get back. And one of the things that I teach my athletes when they hear questions like that, what did you think about such and such? Or did you hear what coach did? Their only reply is, I think he said what he said and he did what he did. But you don't answer that question, because it's going to get back. In politics, things are different. You can say something that can offend people. And this is the same in the corporate world. It's the same in the boardroom. You have to watch what you say. And some of the guys that, when you look at Manoa Latu, you look at Lawan Latson, you look at Jordan Parsons, even the offensive line coach, these, even you can tell some of his closest coaches, there's times where they felt that he probably should have called a different play. He should have did something different. But they wasn't going to berate him behind the scenes or behind his back, So you have to observe it. And like he said, there was coaches on that staff last year. They're now at Division I schools. And we know that Coach Manoa Latu is at Portland State, Division I AA school, because you can see in the film how he handled himself. He might not have liked every offensive or defensive call, but he was there. He was there to coach. He knew his position. What I'm saying is that if you're ambitious, the keys to power at a certain point is you can't approach this from a naive or a myopic perspective. And when you look at what Frank was doing, you could look at and see that he was short-sighted, he was narrow-minded, and he wasn't thinking 3, 4, 5, 7 years down the road, or playing that situation to the next opportunity. And that's what I mean about, looking beyond the situation right now. He was just looking at this from a microscopic, short-sighted, narrow-minded perspective. And Frank, if you're listening to this, I hope you've learned from this. And it's different today because everything that we do is blasted in social media. It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter. So you really have to watch what you say. Now, the only reversal to this is if you were trying to make a play at Alston, Coach J.B. Brown, and becoming the head coach. But that wouldn't be you, because you're still young in the profession. And even his defensive coordinator didn't play that game, or his offensive line coach, who had a lot of years of experience. What do you think about this part, Leland?
It's just not the way to approach it. In the network, you have to understand that what people wait for is certain characteristics. They wait to see certain things. I'll give you an example. So if I'm having a conversation with a head coach at the University of Oregon, okay, and my son played at University, or say my son played at PSU, okay, and I'm thinking about making a move, the first thing I do is I start bagging on the coach from PSU. Now, the normal person would think, okay, he's telling me his transgressions. He's telling me. A smart person would go, just this how they would take that. Okay, he's bad mouthing him. When he gets in a bad situation with me, I wonder what he's going to say about me. That's how the inside folks view things. So when you start bad mouthing folks to people that are in your industry, when you put it out there, it's not going to come back like you think it's going to come back. You may think it's going to come back as you're just complaining and telling folks about your transgressions and what you and him what your working situation was like, but what they're thinking is this: okay, I wonder what he's going to say about me when things get difficult between us. Because in relationships, just in every relation, one thing you know is you're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs. How you react in your downs tells what type of person you are, tells about your true character. uh, Mr. Diaz, I kind of probably from the first two episodes, I knew he was a different guy. You know, without you even telling me he was from Willamette, I knew that one thing that he hadn't done is he hadn't been around those particular types of athletes. And if you ever been up to Willamette College, um, Willamette High School, that's probably even more so. Same area, bro. You know what I'm saying? Same area, same mentality in that area. Um, they don't deal with those type of athletes and those type of human beings, those type of people. And I understand you said he went to Oregon and Chip Kelly gave him an internship there, but like you said, it didn't seem like he took advantage of that situation in the right way. He wasn't in the moment.
Right, and not to cut you off, Leland. Even when you get to Oregon, you're still not dealing with those kind of behaviors because it's the structure is a little bit different. They're coming in, they're marching on cue, so you don't. He still didn't have any experience dealing with situations like that. It would be minimal at Oregon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Um, and when I speak on this situation, I'm not speaking on the situation like I'm just trying to dog Frank out because I've been in situations in my lifetime where I was in a real good situation, but because I wasn't in the moment, didn't take advantage of it. I explained that my buddy Dwayne from Oakland, we were just we're kind of rekindling our relationship with guys that we played with on our junior college team, and this junior college team that we had was a very good one, and we did some things that a lot of people didn't think that we were going to do. And I had to, they were talking about the good times, and I had to just say, man, I apologize to y'all. And one of my buddies like, apologize for what? I said, if you remember, man, I got suspended, and I did. I got suspended, and it was an opportunity where the team hadn't been to the playoffs like in 25 years. And we were getting ready to go to Southern California and play in the big JC tournament had we won this next game. But I was a very, very, very ignorant person at that time. During that time of my life, I didn't have mentors. I didn't have anybody guide me. Not any excuses because I ain't no excuse. But I made some dumb ass decisions, and I got suspended. And I had to watch my team barely lose a playoff game in the stands. And after that, did something real stupid too because I had a real anger issues. Thank God that I went through that and I learned from it. The crime would have been if I went through that and did the Frank Diaz and didn't learn from it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just hoping, just like you said, I hope this whole situation, because he says he's going into a new situation, I hope he just takes a step back and learns from the things that he didn't do right and the right decisions he didn't make.
Yeah, and I agree with you before. Like, if you're the audience listening to this, a sports parent, student athlete, young coach, I fucked up too. I've spoken out of turn, said some things emotionally, and I know looking back on certain situations, it costed me. It cost me getting on the field. You know what I mean? Venturing solid opinions into something that I really didn't know anything about as far as the decision making processes of putting an athlete on the field. And when you do certain things like that, or if you criticize a head coach, you critique an assistant coach, and you're around other people, it always gets back. And when you're doing that from an emotional standpoint, again, it's a naive and myopic perspective, and that's one of the things that that epitomizes the Sports Mastery podcast, that epitomizes the Sports Mastery program, my mentorship with athletes. The first thing we do is, as Leland always says, I share the things that I've been through, where I point the finger at myself because I've been in situations. We have athletes in situations right now where we're guiding them through these difficult moments. And like Leland said, it's no excuse, but we didn't have mentors. We didn't have somebody that had been through a field of landmines from a personal, as far as having that experience and being able to share their knowledge and wisdom. So, this is what makes the program unique, because we're not speaking from a position of like, I've never messed up, but this is how you should do it. We're saying, no, we've been there. We've actually really fucked up, and we've had a chance to really think about it, even though we've had some small successes. But we can both venture to say that if we've done things a little differently, we could have maximized our genetic and athletic potential. Now I still love sports. I still love working with young people. I know that this is my calling. I know this is Leland's calling. So we always figure out ways to give back on a deeper level. And our systems and programs are unique. It starts with our experience. Then it starts with being connected to other people that's been there before, that's coached difficult athletes.
No, I agree. I agree with you 100%. Man, I always tell my kids when we're in training, I said, my son, they look at his career and they go, wow, he's had a pretty decent career. And they kind of, I said, the only reason why he had that career is because he had someone right dead in his face who did the total exact opposite of what he did. I explained to you before of a situation when Jazz at UOP. Had I been Leland a long time ago, I would have blew that situation. I think about that all the time. I'd have blew it. I would have blew it because my attitude and my anger would have got the best of me, But because I've had the opportunity at doing that, and then which is the hard thing, you stop and you re-record that memory back in your mind, and if you're a real one, you gonna say, "Wow, look at how I messed up." You ain't gonna point the finger at nobody else. You just gonna really, and it'll take you through some shit mentally. It'll take you where you will sit down and you'll go, "Wow, did I really? Did I really?" And my only way of me really honestly dealing with that was kind of, when I started the development of Jazz. I told you when we first started, I didn't start off by telling them any good thing about me in athletics. I started off by telling them every bad situation I had been through. And then he would ask me a question. So, well, why you? And then, it would always result in, maybe the experience that I had, because he would say, well, Dad, why you didn't make it to this level? Why you didn't do this? I said, you know what? Maybe the experience I had was a needed one for me to be here for you. And he was just such a mature kid that he understood that and he embraced that. You know what I'm saying? And to this very day, it's like, that's what I am for him. I was watching a program, Hard Knocks. It's on HBO, and they're following the Cleveland Browns right now, and there's a tight end. His name is Caduce, and him and his dad's relationship reminds me a lot of me and Jazz's relationship, and it's real cool because his dad'll come to the practice field, and he'll whistle, choo, 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 like the Mexicans used to do back in the day, that choo, 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 that little chirp. And then it's a trip because he'll hear it and he'll go, chip, 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 chip,
Right.
chip. They'll chirp back, right? And he'll go right to the area where his dad is. And they both give each other this big ass hug and just grab each other. And the backstory was this. His dad had 2 open heart surgeries, 2 heart attacks, and he almost lost his dad. Their relationship was like me and Jazz's situation in the beginning. and then they got a chance to kind of like almost lose that, and to see them together, bro, it's like it's so beautiful. It's like I understand that feeling. I understand that feeling. You know what I'm saying? To see that makes you feel so good. So you know, telling guys and dealing with athletes and being able to experience or share my experience with them, for me, at the same time where I'm helping them, it's a how can I say this? It's a security blanket for me also. It's helped me deal with issues that I never really thought about because I didn't want to look at myself in a fucked up way. But it helped me to look at myself in a fucked up way and then do something about it. You know what I'm saying? So it helped me at the same time while I was helping him.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, I don't want you feeling fucked up about Leland now because that's his little wiener dog whining in the background. You know, I ain't gonna tell him to put the dog out the room, but nevertheless, you were talking about the gentleman that had two open heart surgeries, and we want to talk about life and really like life after sports and making the best of it. And it seemed like in this episode 7 of season 3 of Last Chance U, there was an underlying theme of being at the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium, guys fantasizing about making it to the NFL. Most of them won't. It might be one dude that might have an opportunity off of that team. And we were talking about Bobby Bruce earlier, Leland. And what was kind of your take on that life after sports, Bobby Bruce, and that whole situation of visiting Kansas City Chiefs Stadium? I know you wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, throughout the episode, if you watch in the very beginning, Bobby was like, this camera went straight to him, and they were telling the underlying story. And I would like, if I was to name that episode, rename it, um, I would rename it Bobby's Reality. And they were, he was saying, I'm gonna make it to the league. I'm gonna make it to the league. But there was a shot with Miss P before that, and she said, "Ooh, I just want to grab him and shake him. Everybody don't make it to the league," and that's so much the truth. I don't want people to get anything misconstrued, or I love this sport, and I love pushing my son to reach his highest goals in this sport, but I also love my son. And I understand this sport can be real cruel to you. Sports can be real cruel, So our approach has always been, we're gonna take this as far as we can take it, but we're gonna also still it's an education. We're gonna steal the best education we could probably get. So that if you don't make it, guess what? Your education, if you love sports enough, and I always explained it to him like this. I said, your education can get you a job in sports. There are several many titles within sports where you can make a good living for yourself, but you got to get that degree. And I remember a situation where when Jazz was younger, it was we were a group of parents. We were so competitive. A guy named Kanan Chapman, he had his ICP organization. Terry Pritchard, he had Fast. And I come from a different place. I came from Oakland, California. And coming from Oakland, California, the one thing that I knew when I was growing up was I would see good athletes, and then all of a sudden I see those good athletes blow their opportunities. And the common theme was they didn't take care of the situation in the classroom. And to a certain extent, that was a little bit of my problem along the way. You know what I'm saying? That was a lot of my problem along the way. Thinking that my athleticism would take me to places that I didn't even have to worry about that stuff. So I never approached it like that with Jazz. And I remember a situation when he's in the 9th grade, and we were playing against Jefferson High School. It was a big game. Everybody was there, and they looking at me. That's that crazy dude who got the little fat son, and do this, do that. They got the comments. But at halftime, they were making an announcement, and the announcement was for all the freshman players who were carrying a 4.0 at that point in the school, because they were trying to keep the school open by bringing pride to the school through sports and through education. They were really pushing it. And every kid that came out there at halftime, they were Asian, except for one. And that one kid was my son. And the reaction that I got from everyone from that point on was they were just totally perplexed. They were confused because everybody thought my approach and his mom's approach was like about sports. And it never was. It was never 100%. We always treated sports as we gonna pimp it. Excuse my term. But we were gonna pimp the sport to get where we wanted to get in life. If it got into a professional career, if it does, then that's just the cherry on top of the cake. That's the cherry on top of the cake. And that's what we fight for and that's what we want to do. But if it don't, we got other things that we want to accomplish. Jazz is always gonna be Jazz. And he won't lose that confidence and he won't lose that aura that he's built while being an athlete. Because he'll just take that and he'll apply it to the business world.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to him becoming our marketing director down the road. I know he's majoring in marketing, so hurry up. Let's go play the sport. And we need your ass here to do all this social media shit, handle the newsletters, go talk for us. Speaking of academics, man, there was a scene in there where JB was like, Coach Brown, he was like, you guys got to play the game. You guys, it's a game. And he's talking about, going to class every day. And he says pretty much the way that I lived in school, and that game is one, you got to show up every day to class. Even if your ass partied the night before, and I know y'all are going to stay out late, but if you have an 8 o'clock class the next day, you got to be there. You got to sit up front every class. Me, I used to raise my hand once every class, even if I knew the answer. And I would meet with the instructor 2 to 3 times throughout the term to build rapport. And that first meeting would be, what is it going to take to get an A out of your class? And when you do things like this, it shows that you care. And I
Yep.
got some A's when I was in college, but I will also, I also had the appropriate dress code. If I'm gonna wear jeans, I'm gonna wear a polo. Sometimes I wear the khakis with the button down, with the loafers, because when you're an athlete, you get stigmatized or you get stereotyped whether you want to believe that or not. You can't always walk around in sweats, the little Nike what's that? The little sliders that they wear now and the tank
Yeah.
top.
Yeah.
It's just not going to get you very far when you're on the verge of like a C and a D or an A and a B. It really makes a difference when you show up. This was my thing, Leland. I showed up to class. This is the only way I graduated. Once I figured out my junior year, I went to my counselor. What is it going to take to graduate? I never had any fucking idea. And one day it must have been God with me because I went and talked to him. I was just tired of being in school. And I'm like, I've been here long enough. I might as well get something for it. Because, you know, football coaches don't always make sure of that. They're there at times to keep you eligible. And this is why the Miss Pinkards and the Miss Britneys are important. And I remember my counselor to this day, Bob Martin, we just charted out the next 18 months. But I needed that help, but really what helped me was I went to class every day and I used to party. I used to kick it. I would sit up front and I got past like other athletes teasing me for sitting up front. I would raise my hand, I would meet with the instructor. And I got so cold at this, Leland, that I think in my senior year, graduating from Western Oregon, I passed like my last term of all my class. I think I was taking 18 units. Didn't even buy books because I got so cold at the game and manipulated it so
Yeah.
cold that I knew every instructor, they always keep an extra book. So I would go to them and say, "Hey, can I use your book? I can't afford it. I want to just go take it down to the copy center because at that time you could get copies done for free, and I want to just copy each chapter." And then one day, one of the instructors, they were like, "Here, just use the book and make sure you give it back to me at the end of the term." So I took that to a whole nother level and just did it with every instructor and spent the rest of my money on food and clothes and probably, more so clothes, and hanging out.
what you did was what JB explained at one time. He was sitting at the board. He said, "Hey man, let me explain something to you." He said, "Half the shit I learned in college, I don't know it. I don't use it. I don't apply it." He said, "But you know what? I'm a cold hustler." And what he was saying was this, without even trying to, make the educational system look bad, which honestly it's effed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you compare it to what how knowledge is supposed to be used and how it's supposed to be given, it's not supposed to be paid for. I could tell you that. Um, in ancient times, knowledge was given to the privileged or to those who sought knowledge. Um, Now, in our system, they found a way to make you pay for it. And then the knowledge that you're seeking, a lot of times, it doesn't help you in your professional life. There are a lot of people who went to school for one thing and they're doing something else totally different to put food on the table. And when you think about all the money they spent and invested in an education and to be a professional at that given in that given area, that's a lot of money to be kicking out, and not ever be able to do that as a profession. You know what I'm saying? And those are things that always hindered me. I was dumb, but I was smart at the same time. It was almost like I'm too smart for this damn system to fall for it. And I've always, as a 17, 18-year-old kid, that's the way I viewed education. And that was probably a negative for me because when I graduated from high school, I graduated with honors. And I mean, they gave me a couple of $1,000s in scholarship money, just to here, this is for you. That's how easy it was for me. But as far as the sitting in class, I didn't learn is I didn't learn the game. I didn't learn the game. And the game of just going there and sitting in front of the class. You know what I'm saying? If you go in there, you just sit in the front of the class and you show you want to pass the class and say, I got 7 instructors. Out of those 7 instructors, 5 are going to pass me. You know what I'm saying? 2 are going to probably say, you ain't want to give me an effort, so I'll give you a D. You feel me? Because in their minds, as long as you there and you showing that you want to improve and you want to better yourself, a lot of times they get that to you. And I never thought about this. I never thought when I was in school. I never thought about this. You can get a degree as long as you don't fail. You know what I'm saying? And I never viewed it like that. I never looked at it like that. But eventually, I would learn a lot of things that it was weird because Shannon would tell you this. When I first moved to Portland, you would have never thought I was that type of person because I used to just sit in Powell's bookstore, just picking up different books and just reading and reading about different religions and political systems, stuff like that. So I've always had it. I even went back to school at one point. I was taking a history class at PCC. I just, went in there. Let me take a history class just for the fuck of it. And went in there and basically spilled all my knowledge about trilateralism, about the Freemasonry religion and its effect on politics. And I had a teacher looking at me like, "Hey, so have you taken these courses before?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm just self-read, self-learning, and just interested in coming sharing my knowledge and seeing what you guys are talking about." Didn't even finish the class, but that was just a thing for me. It was I had to. I liked being inquisitive and learning about different things, but the teacher kind of had to engage me and pull me in. And I don't think I had those types of instructors that cared whether they were trying to pull a kid in or not. So I think that was part of it too. Because I think instructors and teachers now are a little bit more concerned with trying to help an individual, make it through school. But, it is what it is. And I learned what I learned. And I think the reason why Jazz is so successful and Coyote is so successful and Majid was so successful and the rest of the kids I deal with because I sit back and explain to them the importance of still in that education while you're playing sports.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Miss Pinker because she's putting like her heart into the kids into Last Chance U, and I really believe you can see the authenticity there, where it's not for show, it's not for the cameras. That's just who she is,
Yep.
and she's relentless about that. And as a young student athlete, if you're listening to this as a sports parent, you have to have a mentorship like that. You have to have a counselor like that, somebody that's in your son or daughter's corner. It's the same in the corporate world. When you're young, you got to find somebody that's going to shape and mold you, and that's going to really challenge you. And that's one of the things that's a strike against Frank Diaz because he really didn't challenge Malik. He coddled him too much. And we're going to get into this in future episodes, how you can ruin kids by coddling them too much. We live in this trophy culture where everybody has to play. I don't want to jump the gun, but when you coddle people, you're basically making them weak. And then they're going to have emotional difficulties down the road, and you can see that's one of the continuing themes throughout Malik's, you know, uh, in each episode with Malik Henry. He was coddled by Frank Diaz. And then at times, even JB coddled him because he was still playing. But he was in a situation with his hands cuffed. The last I heard, Leland, he was back on the team. I don't know if I told you that, but in their first few games, they stream him. I haven't seen him play, but I did hear that he was back on the team. I don't know if this has changed in the last couple of weeks. So I know we debated about this, and for some reason, he did bring him back. And
Yeah,
I
he's
know
back.
after week,
He's back.
they got smacked. They got whooped on Saturday by I think it was Hutch. Yeah,
Oh,
Hutchinson
really?
Community. Yeah, put it on them. Put it on them. When I stopped watching, it was like 30-7. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. They got served, and I think their starter is down, and then they put the backup in. The backup helped them win that first game. So I don't know if there's going to be some changes coming in this next game.
Oh, you know better than that. You know, it's gonna be some changes. You got
Yeah.
that's the way he operates. You got your chance to do your job, and if you fail, next man up. And like I said, after the first year, every kid should understand that coming in now.
What do you want to close out with, Leland? We're getting into the fourth quarter of this episode. What is something poignant or specific about episode 7, season 3, that you would like to discuss before we close this thing out today?
As an athlete, all of us want to be able to play at the pinnacle. Everybody would love to be in the NFL. Everybody would love to be in the NBA, MLB. We would love to play professionally in our respective sports. Throughout that episode, uh, there were several people that if Bobby Bruce was listening, I'm not going to say that he wouldn't be able to make it to that level to play in the NFL. I'm not saying he wouldn't, but if he looked at his situation a little more seriously, then maybe that chance would happen. One of his coaches explained at one point in time, and he was being really, really nice about it. He was trying to, convey it in the nicest way possible. And he's like, there are players that are bigger than Bobby Bruce. There are players that are faster than Bobby Bruce. There are players that just understand the game a little bit better and a little bit more than what he does. And he basically said, Bobby Bruce's professional career and his NFL is getting him a degree so that he can get him a job and take care of himself. That's the place where Bobby Bruce, and I think nobody, Miss Pinker tried, but nobody else tried to get him to understand that. And it was almost painful kind of watching him dream and no one saying, "Hey, bro, if this is what you want to do, then you got to change your body. You got to do this. You got to do that, because all the stuff that you're doing now is negative, and it's not going to help you get where you need to get. But it was crazy to see him. It kind of made me go, wow. And he was like, I'm going to the league. I'm going to the league. But he's not doing anything to aid and abet that. So, that was one of the things that I kept seeing kept hearing it, or the underlying story that rung in my head was, that athlete who doesn't really look at his situation and doesn't be real enough with himself to say, these are my shortcomings and this is why I couldn't make it. But I love that dude that says these are my shortcomings, and whatever I have to do to work on it to overcome it, that's what I'm going to have to do.
Yeah, we're gonna close out right here, ladies and gentlemen. If you work out, if you're a coach, if you have basketball teams, if you have 7-on-7 teams, oh my God, you got to check out Millennium Edge Apparel and the things that they have there. Go check out millenniumedgeapparel.com and you'll see what I'm talking about. The Sports Mastery Workbook was created for the student athlete and the parent to work through together. The Sports Mastery Workbook was created for the student athlete and the coach to work through together. It was created in a sense and in a way to bridge the gap in communication between these parties and build a successful relationship dynamic. To learn more, visit sportsmastery.com/workbook or check out the show notes page and click on the link.